It's my favorite time of the year. It is mock draft time. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Rich Sports Talk. It is your first official mock draft of the season for the New York Jets. My 7-rounder. I know I've been teasing 3-rounders, but you know what? You guys deserve it. You deserve the whole thing. You deserve everything. So after the combine, we now will get into my first mock draft for the New York Jets. This draft, I'm going to put a little precursor on it. Usually I like to do trades. This one, I'm going to go straight up. This one I'm going to do with the picks the Jets have. Now, in future ones, I will be exploring trades. I will be exploring trade backs, trade ups, potentially moving throughout the draft. And, of course, if the Jets somehow add draft capital throughout this offseason, that will, of course, impact how they will draft. And, of course, after free agency, how will it impact their needs? Will they need offensive line as badly? Will they need a playmaking receiver? But as it stands today, this is my first mock draft. It is now official. The New York Jets are on the clock. And with the first pick at number 10 overall in the 2024 NFL Draft, the New York Jets will select Olu Fashanu, the left tackle from Penn State. Look, one of the biggest things that happened throughout this combine is that we're seeing that the Giants and the Titans have kind of downplayed their need for an offensive lineman. I don't think that the best tackle alt is going to be available for the Jets, but Fashanu to me is the second best prospect. I think he falls to the Jets at 10 now. A little bit of concern. Some people concerned about the minor injury at the combine. It doesn't bother me. I think that this is not only a plug-and-play left tackle from day one, but this alt has one of the few players on this offensive line that I could see potentially being a perennial Pro Bowl player at the left tackle position. After him, there's a lot of guys that are going to start on the right side. You hope can make the transition to left. He is a left tackle. If the Jets have the opportunity to draft him, sprint to the podium. Now, again, if he's off the board, I could see the Jets exploring some trade downs. I could see Brock Bowers potentially being in play, but don't overcomplicate it. Protect Aaron Rodgers and go get your left tackle. So, of course, because of Aaron Rodgers, the New York Jets do not have a second-round pick, but they do have a third-round pick. And I know the trend. A lot of people are having the Jets go with a wide receiver. And while that is tempting, I may have gone a slightly different route. I have the Jets going with Chris Jenkins, the defensive tackle out of Michigan. And I know everyone's going to be screaming, wait a minute, come on. This is a great wide receiver class. The Jets need receivers. The Jets need receivers. Here's my thing. I think the Jets are going to add receivers. They'll just be in free agency because Aaron Rodgers doesn't want the growing pains of a young receiver. He wants veterans. And you look, this is a very good market for wide receivers. Mike Evans is on this market. Valdes-Scantling's on this market. Calvin Ridley, who the Jets have been tied to. There's been talks of Corey Davis potentially coming out of retirement. OBJ doesn't appear to be going back to the Ravens. There's a lot of opportunity. But one of the things the Jets, we know how bad the offense is. But the Jets have a bit of a need at defensive tackle. We saw the injury to Al Woods last year. The Jets, you could run on them a little bit. Chris Jenkins, of course, the son of the former Jet, Chris Jenkins, I would be excited to have him on this team. Look, Joe Douglas loves certain things. He loves great RAS scores. He is one of the best ones out of the combine. Physical, can rush the passer at 305 pounds. He's even said he would love to play with the Jets. And look, if there's a chance that Huff is no longer on this team, you're going to have to improve this pass rush. And maybe you don't do it on the edge, but you do on the interior. And if you get him here in the third round, I have him as a second-round grade, but the reason I have him falling to the Jets here at the top of the third round is there are so many offensive linemen. There are so many quarterbacks. There are so many wide receivers in this draft. I think it's going to push some really good defenders that should go in the round 2 into the round 3. Jets take a great value pick here, builds their defensive line. They want to build through the trenches on both sides of the ball. This gives them a key cog on the defensive side, gives them another big buy to put next to Quinnen Williams. You know Big Q is going to be happy because he'll get rid of some of those double teams. And it also, if you're trying to make McDonald work as an edge rusher, it helps them maybe get some more one-on-one matchups on the outside. So that's what I have them going with there in round 3. I know you weren't expecting this, but you want sexiness, right? You want some flash for the next pick, I'm guessing, right? Sorry to disappoint you. I'm sticking with the beef. I am sticking with the buffet busters here in round number 4. I have the Jets going with an intriguing pick here. Cedric Van Pran, the interior offensive lineman out of Georgia. Played center at Georgia. I thought he was a really great run blocker, has really good agility that fits into the zone scheme the Jets run. Here's the thing. I've been on the record. I think Joe Tippmann should play guard. By doing this, you could kick him over to guard, or Cedric Van Pran could be a guard. You look at this guy, he could be a high-end backup instantly, but could maybe even push to be a starter down the road, could be a nice building block. Here's the thing I really love about him. He can play all three of the interior positions, can play both guards and center, so high value there. But this kid's a finisher. When you look at the guys that Joe Douglas really likes, they are finishers. They're going to be finishing the play. They're going to be down the field, and Van Pran is one of those guys. So to me, he makes a lot of sense. You continue to build that offensive line. The Jets' biggest weakness, I have him going there. So the Jets also have another fourth-round pick. Just 2 picks later, pick 112. What direction will they go with? I'm going to throw you a bit of a wild card here. I have the Jets going with Joe Milton, the quarterback out of Tennessee. And look, the Jets had a unique opportunity at this combine. Their quarterback coach was literally standing next to all these quarterbacks. And I know Michael Penix is going to get all the love, and there's all those pictures with Michael Penix. But I think it'd be hard standing next to Joe Milton and not get excited. Now, again, only a one-year starter in college. But when you look at the tool set and what the Jets are looking for, they want to develop a quarterback. This kid is 6'5", 235 pounds, and you looked, he was dropping a 70-yard bomb. I know a lot of fans might be getting post-traumatic syndrome from the Zach Wilson Pro Day, but this kid has a lot of great tools. He needs some refinement, but he has a big arm. You can't teach a big arm, but you know who might be able to hone that howitzer in? Another guy on the team. You may have heard of him. His name is Aaron Rodgers. I think this is a really good developmental pick. Could you make the argument you could get him later after the 5th round? Potentially, but I just feel like this is someone that the Jets can use as a redshirt year, see what you have, develop him. If you don't like the development over the next year, you can look at next year's draft for a quarterback, but you got to look for high-end skill sets. You got to look for the home run ability here in this draft, and to me, Milton presents that. So the Jets now don't have a 5th-round pick. They have a 6th, but 3 7th-round picks. So who do I have the Jets going with in the 6th round to kick off day 3? At this point, I have them going with Dylan Labe, the running back out of the University of New Hampshire. And he, to me, is a really intriguing prospect. He, as a running back, is a great receiver. He couldn't be covered in the Senior Bowl. Great pass catcher out of the backfield. And I actually think he can be a good slot receiver in the NFL. Jets could use a slot receiver. I think he could be one of those hybrid players that fills that role. And look, we all know how great of a pass catcher Breece Hall is out of the backfield. But to me, you're going to need another great pass catcher. Labe is that, a great check down option, really smart route runner. And I think he can be one of those guys like a Danny Woodhead, someone that fits in between that. Maybe isn't a full-time running back, maybe he's not a full-time receiver, but can play both of those positions and add value to your offense. So the Jets will finish up in round 3. They have picks 253, 254, and 257, a.k.a. Mr. Irrelevant. So who do I have the Jets going with in round 7? Let's kick it off with the first pick. That would be a linebacker, J.D. Bertrand out of Notre Dame. Look, not overly athletic, but really impressive the Senior Bowl. Great team leader, great instincts, really understands the playbook. And here's the thing. At this point, the Jets, I know everything's about next year, but a good organization thinks long-term. You have C.J. Mosley getting up there in years. They don't have a long-term backup plan for Mosley. And for me, Bertrand can be someone that could maybe develop into that next starting linebacker. And with this Jets defensive staff, they've shown that they can develop players. And I think this is someone that you could develop. He's a really smart, heady kid. And to me, I think one guy in particular is really going to fall in love with him. I think Jeff Ulbrich will love him because don't forget, Jeff Ulbrich was a really good linebacker, but he's kind of reminds me of J.D. Bertrand. Wasn't necessarily the most athletic, didn't really drop your draw with what with what he could bring to the table athletically, but was incredibly smart, heady, understood the game, was always in the right position. To me, he's someone that he's going to fall in love with, probably fell in love with at the Senior Bowl, and I could see him easily being a member of the JETS in 2024. But let's go back to the offensive side. Let's get another playmaker at 254. I have Eric All, the tight end out of Iowa. Here's the thing. I call this almost a JD special. Now, he tore his ACL in October, was at the combine. There are some injury concerns, but if you were projecting, All is probably going to be a round 2 or round 3 pick. I think a lot of teams are going to be scared off because of the ACL, and I know a lot of Jets fans are saying, wait a minute, come on. Why do we invest in someone here? Here's the thing. The Jets, I think, have a solid tight end room, but they could really use a third, and All could be a nice developmental piece, and he has a lot of upside. It reminds me a lot of Bryce Hall, where the Jets drafted him in the 5th round, even though most people had a 3rd-round grade on him, but he dropped because of an injury. I think that this is a good tight end class. All could maybe even be an undrafted free agent, but the Jets bring him in. They already have a couple of interesting bodies in that tight end room. I think you bring in another athletic guy, see what he can do, and you already have your top 2 tight ends. Now you have 3 or 4 guys battling for that 3rd and 4th spot on the depth chart. To me, this is just a good value pick and taking a swing at the upside. And finally, the Jets, how will they finish up this draft? Well, how about with more beef? Yes, I know it's another offensive lineman. Ladarius Henderson out of Michigan. He played guard and tackle at Michigan, can play all 4 spots. And to me, he's a high-end backup. He's not overly athletic, but he's a smart kid, can play multiple positions, and I think he could be a good backup in the league. And I know what you're saying. Isn't it a little overkill with all these offensive linemen? But considering the last 2 years that no team has had more injuries than the New York Jets, I think you could use the abundance of offensive linemen. And we don't know who's going to be back. I really like Connor McGovern, but is he going to be back as a backup? I really like the progress of Carter Warren, but is he going to be ready to be a full-time starter should the need come in? Max Mitchell, he took a bit of a step back in year 2. Can he take a step forward? And of course, we don't know about the health of AVT. Joe Tippmann was lucky to stay healthy last year, and now you have a whole new guard position opening. So the more the merrier on the offensive line. I don't think you can go wrong, but this is another kid. And my thing too is I love Big Ten offensive linemen. They play in the 3-point stance. They know how to run the football. You see Harbaugh's done a great job of developing offensive linemen in Michigan that have made the transition to the next level. So again, I know it might not be the sexiest pick, but again, this draft isn't necessarily about being sexy if you're the New York Jets. It's about building that foundation, that wall in front of Aaron Rodgers. And if it's a bit overkill this year, I don't care, because if Aaron Rodgers is healthy, this team has a chance. And if he isn't healthy, well, we've seen this script before. But anyways, that is our first official mock draft. We will be having more throughout this offseason. And of course, don't you forget, I will be having mock draft Mondays every Monday up until the draft. And don't forget, it's not just going to be the New York Jets. I'm going to do the entire first round for all 32 teams. That will be coming. So if you're a huge fan of mock drafts and you love this NFL draft process, make sure to give us a like, bash that subscribe button, and stay here for all the latest and greatest only on Rich Sports Talk.